Good evening, Facebook Live. I am Angel Amoroso, and I am here this evening with episode 18 of Fuck You, Mick Foley. Usually, I wait until a few people start joining me to get this underway, but this one's going to be another one that's like almost 2 hours, so I'm not going to try to waste any time. I'm not really feeling great today, so as I explain all the time, this is not a show designed to harass Mick Foley in any way. This is a show to expose the trolls and people that defend Mick Foley and harass me. So I will get back to the comments section after the video gets done playing and, see who has joined me. We'll welcome everyone as usual. And if anyone has any questions that they'd like answered after listening to the upcoming interview, we'll get back to it after the interview is over. So without any further wait, we'll get right to it. This is an interview that I did with Shelly Martinez last year, and I wanted to do this a year to the date, but like I said, I haven't been feeling great past week, so it's a little later than I expected. We'll also have to get back and read some comments that were made about the video and so forth. Right now, I might go off the screen because I'm going to open up another tab. I will be in the comment section as Angel Amoroso Versus if you'd like to chat with me over there. So I want to go to my Facebook. All right, great. And we're going to go to my group, Wrestling Bitch. Okay, moving down here because earlier this evening, I shared the link to let you guys know I was coming on and to invite you to join me. So, as I said, I'll be clicking on and off and I'll be in the chat while this goes on. And I want to say in advance that I'm going to apologize to anyone who might be offended by the things that they're going to hear, but I'm just telling the truth, and you'll hear it, and you know that it's not coming from any malicious part of my heart. It's just something that needs to be said. So without any more hesitation about this, let's click on Shelly Martinez's interview with me from December 14th, 2007, which was actually aired in January. Let's just click onto it. Okay, this is what happens when you go to Shelly's, I guess it's a Patreon. You must be 18 years of older to enter, and we are. So let's enter the world of Shelly Martinez here. And first, we'll just move down the list and look a little bit. Shelly is creating podcast videos and photo shoots. You could become a Patreon for Shelly. At the information listed below, there are links to different items that you could buy that Shelly offers. And here's a whole bunch of links underneath of what I sent her in videos and links in YouTubes. And if you guys want to go over to her Patreon, here's a look at all the items and shows that she offers. So it's all Shelly. And she also does the live stream with her sister Danielle. So if you are an Ariel fan, this is for you WWE, ECW fans. Shelly Martinez was Ariel in ECW. I, of course, did not know that because I do not watch wrestling. So, how this interview even came up was that someone gave Shelly my information on Twitter. And Shelly contacted me through Twitter. And she said that her and her sister were starting their new podcast. We're revamping an old one, however. And she wanted to cover this topic. So here it goes. I hope that you guys will really listen to this. And I'm not going to be on the screen. I'll be on and off. But I don't want to be a distraction to what you're about to hear, because hopefully if you listen to it, it will clear up any questions that you have about the things that I've been saying. Okay? So, let's go with Shelly Martinez's interview with Angel Amoroso entitled Save Wrestling. Yeah, it was a little confusing for me too, but here we go.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. All right, hold on. Okay. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Hey guys. I thought that for my audio diary, I was going to do an entry about something that has been very personal to my life. And what's crazy is the entry I'm going to share with you is something that I actually recorded, and I didn't even realize this till right now, and I started editing the audio of this. And exactly 1 month ago tomorrow, which tomorrow will be January 14th, 2018, is when Danielle and I both recorded this interview. So I'm just going to go ahead and let you guys give it a listen. And I just want to say for the record, before we get into anything, that the whole purpose of this audio diary entry is not to point fingers, not to be gossipy, nothing negative. I'm a firm believer that you should go to the horse's mouth when there's an issue with something. And for me, when I got involved in this situation, I wanted to hear the side of the story of the people involved. Now, only one of them was willing to talk about it. So I just want to say for the record, I'm just a gal, Danielle's just a gal, here to share Angel Amoroso's story and what she has lived in her life, how she's connected to wrestling, and why nobody wants to give her the time of day. Shelly and I believe in journalism, and a good journalist wants to see all sides of the situation and research and ask the hard questions that may be uncomfortable at times, but it's all in search of knowledge and the truth and just understanding situations more deeply. So I think that this interview went really well and gave me a lot of insight into many different things, and I feel like it's going to be the same for the listeners, and they're going to really explore and question things, and we hope that you do step away questioning things, because I don't think it's a good state of mind to just say, I have these beliefs, I don't want to be questioned. It's good to question your beliefs, even if you walk away with the same beliefs. Just asking those questions, seeing someone's perspective, challenging yourself, challenging others, and I think that's not a bad thing. All right, well, in saying that, I hope you guys enjoy this interview. Okay, so now I'm recording, just so you know. So can you just say your name and that you know that I'm recording you?
My name is Angel Amoroso Walsh, and I'm aware that Shelly Martinez is recording me right now for an interview about my topic.
All right, awesome. Okay, so I guess the whole way to start this is just to tell you how I came across your story. And it's just been one of those things where, the whole thing here in Hollywood with people, well, now it's people. At first, the women coming forward, and now people are coming forward about different abusers in Hollywood. It really spoke a lot to my heart and soul because I always knew that stuff existed, but being that I'm involved in wrestling, I really related to it all with wrestling. And it was just one of those things where I was just, on Twitter tweeting my thoughts about different things. And wait, hold on. Okay, I'm going to start because I'm leaving a lot out and I don't want to leave anything out. So I put the first thing, Danielle. I edit, if people are listening and they've been following Snapchat, I have been doing little previews, and people saw like that night when I was trying to edit this and like my computer was being crazy. So it's been a huge journey and taking a lot of energy out of me, and matching up the audio, it was like so draining. You just got home from work a couple hours ago. Our friend was here. I was able to talk to you guys about it, so I feel a little better now. But what I did when you were at work is where I knew I wanted us to do a little commentary in between to just whether I felt something needed to be elaborated or justified or whatever, because you never know how people are going to take things. So I had that spaced out, and for this one in particular, I was very taken back on how uncomfortable I sound. At times, I'm not making sense. My thoughts are all over the place, and that's something that I've learned about myself. Like if I'm around somebody that has like a weird energy that like I clash with, I notice I'll stutter or I'll like it's almost like I don't even know how to talk for a moment, and that's how I felt when I heard this. Well, it's interesting looking back on things, and we watch things like Married at First Sight, which is a reality show that's like very high pressure. And basically, they do a thing where they have experts matching people up, and then they have a recap of stuff, and it's revisiting moments. And there's certain energy behind certain moments, and it can be distracting. And all of a sudden, like you're stuttering or whatever, and it's like you're being nervous because something's happening within you. It's like you're stirred up. Mm-hmm. And that's how I felt, because this was at the on a Monday, I did the retweet, and then later got Angel's Twitter handle from somebody on Twitter. And if you're listening to this and that's you, please tweet me, because I've tweeted too much and people tweeted me too much. I can't find it. So that was on a Monday. On a Tuesday, she wrote me back and agreed to do an interview with us. And that Thursday, we did the damn interview. So everything was very new and fresh to me. So when I'm hearing this, and this is like the 10th billion time today because I put this together and I kept going over and over, I'm still so tripped out on how, to myself, I sound like a babbling idiot, and my thoughts are all over the place, not making sense, and that's why I wanted to leave it actually in and not edit it out and have those raw moments, because that's where I was at when we interviewed freaking Angel. I am in a different place now. Yeah. But when we interviewed her, I was still in the, what the hell is going on? Like I'm interviewing this chick, and like people are gonna be mad at me. Mick is not gonna be my friend anymore. A lot was going on, and that's why I mentioned the whole Married at First Sight thing, because they shoot things under a lot of pressure and then they edit it later on down the road. And it's one thing to shoot something and then have something posted within days of it coming out, and that can be awesome and amazing, but I think what can be a really trippy experience is posting something, and then looking back on it like 2 or 3 days later, or recording something and looking back on it 2 or 3 days later, or even a month later, even more so like how we did. It was like a little over a month. Yesterday was a month ago that we recorded this. Yeah, because we were starting to think about different things, and then we go on our lives, and all this stuff is happening, and this is not a new idea to us. So you kind of revisit it creatively. Yeah. And I think that's something that's very common in many shows and many things that are produced. And, I get the novelty of things being like, oh, this happened in a sequence. But it's kind of cool to like shoot stuff and then come back to it. Yeah. And then say, oh my gosh, I kind of forgot about this in a way, emotionally at least. And wow, I totally think differently about it. Well, here's what's interesting. We're going to keep carrying on here. And for me, there was a lot that I've been replaying in my head from this interview, but there's so much that I totally forgot about or didn't even grasp the first time. So I'm curious to see if you have the same kind of experience. Yeah, well, something that we're talking about is just so much happening at once and audio and all these different factors. So this is going to be a time where we can actually sit down and listen to it together in a very clear way. So yes, and not only that, but for you guys, you don't know this, when I first, the next day after we got the interview, I was going to edit this, and what happens is, and you'll hear in a moment, of my audio devices that we're using to record, it gets filled with memory. So I felt like crap. I can't take the time to dump all this footage onto my computer while she's like there waiting, like we started the interview, because we're about 6 minutes into it or something like that. So when I heard, and so what I did is I was like, okay, I'll just record it on my laptop and just use that microphone. Well, Danielle and I sounded okay, but Angel sounded at times not even, like, you can't even understand what she was saying. It just wasn't that good. And I was like, oh no. So I told myself, okay, I'm going to stop reviewing this now, and I'm going to review it with Danielle so we can do exactly what we're doing right now. But we can kind of talk about what maybe you can't really like make out what she's saying. So I didn't even tell Danielle this. And then the very next day, Angel wrote me saying, hey, I don't know if this is any use to you, but my daughter recorded my end. So if you want that audio, if it's helpful to you in any way, like, let me know. And so it's so crazy that she had no idea I had this problem with this audio, and boom, there it was. So it's a little choppy. It's not perfect, but now that you guys know the deets, then don't give me too hard of a time. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so what had happened is my friend Ryan, he runs a site called Pro Wrestling Sheets, and he had posted something about Vince Russo, and Vince Russo was saying in an audio clip that there was a female, I think he said diva or former diva, I can't remember, that she had confided in him that she had been raped before. And I retweeted it and said, well, I almost got raped when I was overseas in my time in WWE. Now, when I did that, it was more kind of just adding the awareness to what Vince Russo was trying to bring. And when I did that, I didn't think anybody would really say anything, because earlier in the year, I was like obsessed with watching documentaries about pedophilia in Hollywood. And then it kind of just like stirred up a lot inside of me. And so then I started saying, you know what? I'm going to go on here and start looking on YouTube to see if there's videos about like gay for pay and all this stuff that I know that goes on. But I wanted to see if it was common knowledge. And to my surprise, it totally was, like, fans making videos of this stuff. So I'm like, how is it so glossed over? So I started writing about that kind of stuff earlier in the year, and no one really said much except, look, unless you give us names, like whatever. But this time it was different, because this was about not just the sexual things that go on. This was about rape, and how when all that was going on earlier in the year, one of the things I did talk about was I had mentioned I almost got raped, and no one really, like, I don't know if they just glossed over it or what, but said anything. So again, when I did this, I thought, no one's going to care. And a lot of people wrote me and they were just like, thank you for saying this and blah, blah, blah. And then that's when a fan tweeted me saying, have you heard about the Mick Foley thing? And I was like, well, what are you talking about? So he sent me a link to your video and I watched it with my sister because Danielle and I are, we're friends with Mick Foley. So it was shocking to like find out that you made this video. And then I went on YouTube and I just started to, I typed your name in and I saw another video and it was showing a list of people who took advantage of you when you were at a young age.
Okay, so the first video that you watched was it the protest video or was it a video that actually had names?
The first video was the one with you outside of his book signing.
Okay.
That was the first one. And I just want to say for the record, I'm just being totally 100% honest right now. Like, I don't mean to like cause whatever. I'm just saying that disclaimer, not for you, but for the people listening. Like, I'm just saying this is how I feel. So when I watched your video, I showed my sister Danielle right away. And I said, I believe her. And then Danielle said, she sounds really hurt. And then I said, that's why I believe her. Did you want to say something, Danielle?
Yeah, well, hello. Thank you again for chatting with us about such serious stuff. I know it's not all la-di-da over here, but I think it's important to talk about this kind of thing. So for me, just giving a little background, I have been involved in wrestling, but I come more as an entertainer. I would be more of a manager, a personality. So I didn't have that experience as far as being passionate about wrestling and wanting to pursue it because that's what I felt I needed to do. I just saw it as other avenue of live theater and being character driven. So it's something that I enjoyed. But I see it from a different perspective, especially because Shelly was involved in WWE and I was still in high school. And so she took me to WrestleMania and I was about 17, 18 years old going and experiencing things and hanging out with Stone Cold Steve Austin and seeing these people behind the scenes. So I have a different perspective. I'm not a talent necessarily. I mean, I was involved, but I'm not like a wrestler. So I don't know what the hell happened here. I don't know what, but there's just a chunk missing. It sucks because I wanted this to be very raw. That's why there's even parts where people would probably be like, why should you leave that in? And I wanted it to just be like, see, like, I'm not cutting up someone's interview and like manipulating the material. I'm just trying to give someone a platform to share their version of the story. Exactly. And even with my story, when I was listening back to it, I'm thinking we all have different perspectives. Mm-hmm. And for me, I was young and I was just looking at everything, observing it. I wasn't in it. I wasn't experiencing anything on any personal level, really.
But I kind of feel because you were young, you were able to see it with such a clear vision because there was and you weren't involved. So it's like, no one could alter your perspective on what you were seeing because to them you were just Shelly's little sister, so they didn't pay any mind to like you paying attention to what was really going on around you.
Yeah, exactly. I was just
like, oh, it's Shelly's sister.
Almost like a fan. Like I didn't see the insides of a lot of this stuff, these allegations and these things that are going on. I just was passing on by. Seeing people for face value in the moment that I met them in.
All right, well, let's continue.
A level I'm called liar and told that I'm making up stories when I know exactly how I live my life. I feel like I don't need to defend myself so much against people who are attacking me because of whatever superficial reason, because I have blue hair or because they don't like my personality or my attitude or how I went about doing this. Like, I don't know exactly how they would have went about doing it, if you know what I mean, if they were frustrated to the point that I've been frustrated too. I'm trying to be quiet and let you guys do your thing because I've been on like podcasts and like I never know what's going on the other end because I really don't know the rules to this stuff. So just tell me when you're ready.
Sure. Yeah, just back it up a little bit and then we'll pick it up. Okay. So I have been somebody who has been a bit of an outsider, and I am involved in a sense, but at the same time I'm not. And so I've always had kind of the luxury of having a different dimension of perspective. And it's easy in any group of people, social studies. I went to school for psychology. I love all that stuff. But there's things about group settings and small environments. And once you're in it, you allow certain things are known, all this stuff. And it's easier for me to see the corruption and see things that stand out because I am a part of it, but not.
Right, you've been within the circle enough to know that there's things within the circle that don't really get to go outside of it without people protesting it and put you down so much that you don't want to talk about it anymore.
Exactly, and it's crazy because I have heard these stories and experienced things in a detached way and see what people go through within the business. And it's something that I am just blown away at how bad business things are, how corrupt things can be. And I just am very curious to hear more of your story because at the end of the day, I just want to believe the good in people and the good stuff that I see in them when I'm hanging out with them. And the truth does need to be revealed, and it can be uncomfortable, but at the same time, truth needs to be talked about and things need to be brought to light.
I'm very happy that you both took an interest in my topic because more recently, it seems as though the topic is actively getting buried. And there's been a few people on my behalf that work for both government and media that had all my statements corroborated with other people, and they know exactly what the truth is, and they put this on their podcast and let everyone know that they were in touch with these people and asked them about the situation, and they told them, listen, it's not that it's not true, but you should leave it alone and just leave it where it is. And now this is on air. You can listen to it. It's on YouTube. These are two men who work in media and government, and they got their answers, and they believe me because they know they got their answers from the sources and the people that I'm naming, and still people are trying to bury this as if it didn't happen. And this has been something that's been known within the business for a very long time. It's not something new. It's not something that I'm bringing up because a whole bunch of other people decide that they want to jump on some hashtag bandwagon or whatever they're doing. It's not about any of that. I've been talking about this for years. My daughter is a film student. She has made videos about it for years. She actually won several awards and scholarships from Temple University here in Pennsylvania on this topic. The last scholarship that she won was for this topic, and this was several years ago. It's called The Skim. It's on the internet, on YouTube. They referred us to go to RAIN, the Rape and Incest Organization, and its affiliates, that's War, Women Against Rape, that's here in Pennsylvania. When I realized that Mick Foley was one of the representatives and a spokesperson, I was like, I was taken back by it. I was infuriated. Like I could, I've been in contact. I'm not a wrestling fan, really. I haven't been for several years, so I'm not in communication, and I'm not like a fan who watches to be updated on what people are doing, and I wasn't aware that this was what he was doing. So as I found that out, I later found out that people had told me that he was open about being a fan of incest pornography, which infuriated me even more. They did this on a podcast and told me this, and just to round me up a little bit more. And I already had my issues that I was talking about for years with this, and realizing that he's now a counselor and a representative, and he's around incest victims when he's into incest, and then he's committed what is considered rape a number of times from what I know personally. And he's a counselor for rape victims. So I don't understand when I see something like that, after talking about it for so long, it seems like it's something to do just so that he can hide and cover something up. And in the same way, I feel like it's like, why don't you just hold me down and piss on my face? Like, I don't mean to be like vulgar, but it's almost like being violated all over again to see that he's doing this. And I watched a few rain videos to see, well, maybe it's something good that he's doing and something that might be redeeming. And I saw these videos of him talking about going to these, I don't know, African nations, having the women reenact their rapes as a source of some kind of trauma therapy, which then of course triggered me even more. And he had like some kind of satisfied look on his face while he was talking about it. I mean, these kind of things, I have post-traumatic stress, so I get triggered very easily by things, especially when it's a sensitive topic that I've had a lot of problems with in my life. This is not the first time that I've complained about the situation, despite of what people are saying, and they're trying to say, oh, why is this the first time you come out with it? It's not. I've been through this a lot since I was, I've been trying to report this literally since I was 15 years old. And every time I tried to say something about it, because I was having problems with my family. At the time, my family's a whole other story of dirtbags, and that used me and exploited me within my family. And I wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for them. Excuse me. Pardon me. Okay. So, I got involved in this at a very early time, and I did try to complain about it with police reports. I did go to local police, and because of the problems I was having with my family, they told me to go home and talk to my father about it. And because of people that my father was involved with, no one would listen to me. And my father had me put in a mental institution several times, and they did this over and over again. Every time I tried to complain about it, at one point when I was 15 years old, I got married, and my husband, who had seen everything that went on in hotels previous to that, from when I was like 12 and 13 and 14 years old, because he used to hang around hotel lobbies and see me with people, and we got married later, and he knew what happened. I tried to report it after we got married, because I had a breakdown. After I got pregnant with my daughter, I had a breakdown, and I wanted to report it again. And again, they threatened to take my child away from me if I didn't shut up. I went as far as to call Montel Williams, and then he, had to retract everything, because I had to retract everything, because my family was telling me if I went ahead with saying anything and dragging them through the mud, how I would suffer. And they were already making me suffer. It was a circle. And then I had my daughter, and I figured I would shut my mouth, because I didn't want to have my daughter taken away from me. And I was in a lot of lawsuits with my family about my daughter in custody and whatnot. And every time I tried to bring it up, it was ignored, because so many other things legally were going on in my life that they were listening to my family, and the things that were making me look bad over the things that, except for that stuff, they didn't really, focus on that stuff. I was taken to hospitals, and there were reports done. I went to Planned Parenthoods and examinations in hospitals and reports and everything. And it all went back to my family actually helping these people to bury things. And no one understands how I actually came up in my life and my family, and how they were to me, and how they treated me, and how they are actually responsible for leading me into this and bringing me around the environment that they did. And I'm sorry. I'm going on and on.
No, it's okay. It's interesting that you're bringing this up, and it makes total sense to me, because leading up to me doing that retweet, which led me to finding out your story, my cousin and I recently, I would say in the last couple months, have been reconnecting on Facebook. And she lives out of state. She moved out of state a long time ago. And in my family growing up, there was a lot of sexual abuse. I was involved in child pornography. And
there's a lot of stuff that I couldn't remember, and I just thank God for my sister, because we've been able in these last 10 years or so to reflect on moments and then almost fill in the blanks for each other so that we can understand why we are the way we are. And so when my cousin was like stirring up all this stuff and all this stuff was just coming and I was remembering things or tripping out, that's when I retweeted the thing and I started thinking about it and I saw your story. I just prayed about it. I prayed because I was like, I know I need to do something. And then I started thinking to myself, that actor Terry Crews, who's been very vocal about, being, taken advantage of, or people trying to take advantage of him. I retweet him like all the time. And I thought to myself, you know what, Terry freaking Crews on Twitter, when he's talking about these people that have done these things, he's like mentioning them, just like how you had the guts to go and you were just behind your computer writing these things. You went to this signing where he could have, easily said, hey, whatever, but that just didn't happen. And so I thought, I feel, and it was a weird feeling I felt, you know what? My family was always like, with all due respect, if anybody in my family ends up listening to this, I was always told they're Christian now, so we had to forgive and forget. And my sister and I have kind of been, they're very distant to us, aside from my mom, because they know that we want to talk about all this stuff so we can heal. We need ownership. We need for these people who turn Christian, not okay, that's fine, but you need to own up that you did these things that carried on to, especially for me, I've done some things that I really wish I would have done differently, and people can be like, oh, well, Shelley's just a slut, so who cares what she's saying or think, but it's like, do you ever wonder why I did those things? And when I kind of dug into your story more, I was like, I get where this gal's coming from. I bet you she has a dark past, and that's why she put up, because the first thing people say is, why did you put up with it for so long, and why did it take you so long to say anything? And it's like, it's not that.
Why'd you keep going back and comments like that?
I wish it was that black and white, but that's why these people are predators. They're not just people who are gonna just be a one and done person, and then you cross that line, okay, whatever. They're predators, and they seek out people who have been victims before. They know what to look for. And it really bothered me, because this is a person that I call a friend. And if anyone thinks that I am betraying Mick Foley, before reaching out to you, what had happened is, again, I prayed about it, and then I text him to see what his side of the story was. I didn't hear back from him,
and you're not going to, because he knows he's wrong. I mean, if I was him, I wouldn't address it. He hasn't addressed this to anyone, and a lot of people have gotten in touch with him about this, and his silence should speak volumes on the situation, I believe. But people obviously don't see it like that, because they're still calling me a liar, and then taking what I have said and put out there, and they're twisting it. And then other people who have radio shows and podcasts and whatever are getting, they got all my material. I'm sorry, I hated to interrupt you there, because I knew you were saying something.
No, I was just having a conversation.
They got my material, the live stream, and then all the videos that have been on this subject, and then videos of my family that had nothing to do with it really. And they did a whole 5 or 6 episodes that they're still doing on a weekly basis of playing my videos, taking all my posts off of Facebook and Twitter and dissecting them, but reading them and reading the wrong information. And when the right information is right on screen that anyone could read, but they're saying things like, oh, she said, look at what she put here and this and that. And then they're taking it down to, oh, okay, well, now we finally understand, okay, maybe she was 15 here, but maybe she was 13 and 12 here. But listen, look at her. And she put herself out there. She made herself look like that. She deceived them. If anything, they should be suing her and stuff like that. And then they go back to saying that, like, it's my fault for being there and being around them and being around groups and, you know, fan clubs and whatever, and traveling and whatever. Like, but blame me for it, you know. And then all of a sudden they get back to, like, saying that I said that all this happened at a time that I haven't even mentioned or complained about. And I've already publicly stated that I will not complain about anything that is 16 or 17 years old, because my therapist, when we were unraveling, when they unraveled me so many times with this, with let's take your, you know, let's do some picture therapy, and, you know, it landed me in friggin' mental institutions, ripping my hair out, like, you know, because they were seeing it, you know what I mean? Like, and still just like, it happened. Let's move on. You got to stop bringing this up. And then, you know, I would stop bringing it up for a while, and I'd bring it up again. And then my parents would kick me out of the house, and I ended up homeless for a really long time. During this time, a lot of the time I was homeless. And people don't understand, like, when you start going to wrestling when you're 10 years old and you're around like all the same people from the age of 10 to 18, and then it leads on to like all your life from the age of 10. You trust those people, and then when your family literally hands you over to those people. My sister would travel with me. You know, of course, my sister was 7 years older than me, so when I was 10, she was 17. And the rest of the groups that I traveled with are people that are witnesses to this. They're people that other wrestling people know, like our Gargiulo, he's an announcer and does MMA and all that stuff, and Bob Feinstein, who owns our video, who doesn't know him in wrestling, right? These were my friends when I was a teenager, because we were part of a fan club in 1987, when I was like 12 years old, just Wrestling Radio Squared Circle fan club. Joel Goodhart, who later promoted TWA, that was like ECW before ECW came around in Pennsylvania. He had this fan club, and we were all part of it. It was like all the independent wrestlers from the area that weren't actually wrestlers yet. And the whole fan club, we traveled like to New York and Virginia, like all the independents in Pennsylvania, and even as far as Memphis. We went all the way to Memphis to see USWA wrestling because the co-host was obsessed with Jerry Lawler. This was in 1988. I went to Memphis. Okay, like people look at the pictures of me, and they were like, I am in a picture with Jerry Lawler. Like, I'm 12 years old. I was on a trip with my mom, and like, despite of what did or did not happen, like, why are you going to point the finger at the 12-year-old? I was a part of a fan club, and what my friends were doing was nothing different than what I was doing. You know, they were just a lot older than me.
Can you hold on just 1 second? Because I just want to make sure that there's no glitches, and I want to make sure this is recording. So hold on 1 second. Hold that thought.
Oh, well, it's not anything that I'll ever forget. So if you ever need me to repeat it, the story's not going to change. It is what it is.
Much like me editing this whole thing, even that day, that reminded me of how we were just having issues with our electronics. It was crazy, but that's not why I put the little space there. The reason why I put the little space there for me to do a commentary is when I first revisit this moment, it triggered so much. And when I was in Kentucky, and I don't feel bad saying any of this because it's common knowledge, when I was in Kentucky at OVW, there was a guy by the name Kenny Bolin, and he had this whole like thing, oh, Kenny the Star Maker Bolin, and a lot of the people that he managed ended up being, you know, people that went to WWE and did well for themselves. So that's why he called himself the Star Maker Bolin. He was like a heel manager. And it was very known that he would date underage girls. Oh. And I'll never forget meeting his girlfriend at Six Flags, because what we would do at OVW is in the summertime, we would have weekly shows at the Six Flags over there. I think they were weekly. So I remember meeting his girlfriend. She was a little Middle Eastern girl. Not a woman, a girl. And he's older than me, like by far.
So being how I am, I just like started talking crap to him, especially those days. I was rough around the edges those days. And so I was just like, I was sickened because she was like sitting in his lap, and it just reminded me of the abuse that we went through. And I was pissed that like, why is this being allowed? And it was one of those things that people, including our trainer, would talk about how he's disgusting. And but why is it allowed then? Like, why is he allowed to bring his girlfriend, who's this underage girl, and you guys all talk shit about it, but you don't do anything? Why is no one stopping it? So yeah, I was a bitch to him. And I'll never forget going to London, Kentucky for a show. And me, Aaron Stevens, or Damian Sandow, however you will know him, and Beth Phoenix were in the car because we were all in a gimmick together. And on the way back, I just started reaming in on Bolin. And I was just like, how would you feel if your daughter came home with somebody like you? Like, I went there, and he and I got into it. And I remember Beth and Aaron were quiet the whole time, and they were so uncomfortable. And it was interesting because, again, this is during a time where I was younger than I am now, for sure. And up until that point, I kind of feel, to be honest with you, after our dad died, and I was 18 when he died, I went through this weird zombie-like state for a while. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. I was just like in this weird, as you saw, if you can remember, like,
totally.
everybody was like, that is weird. Shelly is being weird. So now, looking back, I can understand it, because like our dad was one of our predators and a drug addict. And that's really sad. And I see that, like, not to be like, oh, da da da. And I want to give a shout out to Janice Dickinson. And I know that's so random, as they call it, the first supermodel, because if you remember, we used to watch Dr. Drew's reality show, and Intervention is the show that triggered me to remember all these suppressed memories way back when. But Janice, when she was on there, I remember with such truth and just saying a matter of fact, she just kept saying, like, she was like in a fight with somebody that was in the group, and she was like, well, I grew up with a pedophile father, and da 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 da, and she said it was like, it was so normal. And it really took me by surprise. And I was like, yeah, that's what I had, a pedophile father, a drug addict, pedophile father. And that was hard for me to accept that truth, because I want to remember the good things. And that's why when people want to say, like, with this thing about Mick, oh, but he's such a good guy, like, I get that. And that's why I've dragged my feet in getting this thing out, because I have all this guilt, because my own father, the person who's supposed to protect me, to protect you, was preying on us. And then not only that, it took me so many years to be able to say out loud, you know what, at the end of the day, my dad was a drug addict pedophile. And once I was able to say that, I was able to accept it and kind of look at him as a person, not just our dad. And going to this thing, when I saw this girl, I remember thinking to myself, why is it weird and why is everyone else shocked that I'm being so bold? Like, look what the F he's doing.
I know, like,
I'm the asshole. And I remember that's when Paul Heyman was just like getting involved in OVW, and I don't know what the details are, but I just know that Bolin was like, you know, I talked to Paul Heyman like if they were buddies, and I could get you, like, pretty much saying that he can get me fired. And I was like, whatever. And we weren't cool for a long time. Now, I know that Kenny Bolin says nice things about me now, and I've been nice to him since then. But that doesn't mean I don't condone what he has done. And it's not like he's like, I even, and it's weird, I allowed him back on my Facebook. He was my Facebook friend for a while. And then one day I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, and then what he told me, that's why it goes back to this, I'm sorry. But he told me, well, that's what I learned from Jerry the King Lawler, to get them while they're young and they don't know. So when I heard this story, when Angel's going on about Lawler and her in the picture, and people are like saying, oh, look at, she's in the picture, and just saying, well, what about the adults? it triggered this Kenny Bolin thing. And it's weird. And the only reason why I'm saying names and whatever is because A, this has to do with underage children. So yeah, I am going to say names. And B, everyone knows he's open. He took this girlfriend. I don't know the other girlfriends, but he took this young girl who was not of age, and that's how I met her, as his girlfriend. And everyone wasn't cool with it, but they allowed it to happen.
That's a lot.
Al Snow.
I'm just like taking everything in. I have nothing to say.
All right, let's keep going.
Excuse my sniffling. It's delayed here. I once in a while we all have to just crack a little bit, and sometimes I can't work because I don't really have too many other people to talk to about it. I'm like a very private person, and I'm not no friends at all. So this is it's hard.
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
Well,
and we're recording now again.
We're the perfect people to talk to because Shelly has been a wrestler and I've been involved but not. And so I think between the both of us, we can really see you like in a really great way. And I'm really sorry that, I pursued psychology because I just wanted to get to the root of our issues. And I think a lot of our issues stem in childhood. And
Absolutely.
And
I couldn't agree more.
and we continue to relive traumas and re-expose ourselves to different things until we find peace with that. And being a child, you naively think that people that are older than you have the wisdom to not take advantage of you. And I think it's horrible to ever point a finger to a child because as an adult, you have a responsibility to be wise and to make the right choice and to not take advantage of somebody who's young and naive and trusting. And I mean, there's no excuse for that. And there's no scenario, even if a kid is in the wrong, because ultimately an adult's responsibility is to be an adult and be overseeing the situation and making sure that things go accordingly in a proper way.
Especially when they're authority figures, and they not only authority figures, but they are people that they know damn right well the younger figures are looking up to them and looking for their approval because when you're that young and you're, like I said, like when your family passes you along, you look for your family elsewhere, and then you find comfort in other people who aren't really your family, but since you're around them all the time so much, like, and you're seeing them 2 to 3 days a week when you're supposed to be in school, and I was nowhere near school, hardly ever, fortunately. When people look up to you like that, and they look at you like your family and friends, and then you realize, these people are taking advantage of me, and I'm being made aware of it, like the few situations that were outright rapes that there was no looking beyond what it was. Like I had to look beyond it anyway. The other situations, I'm not trying to demonize anyone and say that like the situations were like I was with groups, and a lot of times I was a kind of kid that I drank a lot, and we traveled with a drug dealer, and I did lots of drugs. I used to fucking pass out a lot, and I'd be like belligerent and obnoxious, and I was a horrible, horrible little child, and people remember that of me. But it being like that, I looked up to those people, and I didn't know that. I thought I was just having a good time with my friends and family, and I didn't look at it as they were molesting me or abusing me or whatever, and whether or not they were being rough or gentle or however they were, or doing it when I was passed out or however they went about it, I wasn't taking it that way because it was my friends and family at the time. I don't want people to hate Mick Foley. I didn't hate him, and part of me, I still don't hate the guy. And everyone that's on that list, like of that video that you did see, I'm not going to say that I hate those people because I know how to control that part in me that is just like, I understand that my anger comes from what they did to me, but I'm not going to carry that hatred in life because it makes me sick. Every day of my life, it's made me sick. But again, they were the authority figures, and I looked up to them, and I didn't hate them, and I considered them friends and family, and they did what they did to me, and then they made jokes about it later in my life when I was an adult and still in the business and still around them into my 20s and 30s and so on, and it was all a joke to them. It was never a joke to me, and it always hurt me, and I was always very hurt by it. They just didn't care because they had something to keep around with big tits and laughable qualities, like, oh, just do anything with her. You could fucking rip her clothes off, make her cut her face up and bleed all over the place, and have her, choke slammed by all these people and going through tables. Like, have her do anything. We don't care, and then laugh about it after it's done. Like, and then not acknowledge it later. Like, I never existed. And that's going into my adulthood, which I don't even want to get into because then people will say that I brought it up, which I don't want to confuse people because none of the things that I'm complaining about right now is anything that happened to me before. If this is stuff that I'm talking about 16 and under, I'm complaining about. And I think that that's a pretty reasonable, because in states, the age of consent is 16 in some states. Other states, there's no statute of limitations. In some states, there's statute of limitations. 15, 13, 12, you can't give consent to sex in any way. You can't hug, or you can hug them, maybe not grope their tits and manipulate them with your hands and grope, you know what I mean? Like, you can't be gropey. You can't stick your tongue in their mouth. You can't grind up against them until you achieve orgasm. You can't jerk off on them. You can't make them jerk you off. You can't stick your penis in their mouth. You can't perform oral sex on them. You can't put your penis in them. You cannot put your penis in their anus or even near it in any way. You shouldn't be near it. But all of those things happen to me while I was traveling with these people, which maybe I shouldn't have been there. Damn right I shouldn't have been there. I should have fucking had my ass in school, excuse my language. My ass should have been in school, and if I had a better family, my ass would have been in school. And off wrestling times, I also would have had a place to live instead of like scrounging on the street like some animal. People don't understand all the details that go back into this. That, oh, well, why did you go back? Because from Thursday to Sunday, sometimes Monday, I had a place to stay when fucking wrestling was in town, because otherwise I was homeless because my parents kept putting me out on the streets, because I kept bringing this up. Like, and it was either that's my family or this is my family, and they kept just brushing it off, and go back to your wrestlers. It's what they used to tell me. And my sister traveled with me, and my sister always took their side over mine. She has a lot wrong with her as well, so I don't want to knock her too much. But she was 7 years older than me at all times when we start traveling. At no point did I ever put anyone under the impression that I was any age other than everyone knew that my sister was much older than me. My mother confirmed in 1988 on a fucking Memphis bus trip to everyone how old I was. Everyone knew. This was no big secret. I don't know what all the doubt is about right now. It's just about people wanting to hide everything that has went on and everything that I've tried to come out with. And I'm real insulted by the fact that they would say that this is just like, oh, this is a stunt with this hashtag Me Too stuff. No, it's not. It really isn't. But if that's what they want to think, maybe they need to do a little bit more research on the internet to go back to the beginning of my Twitter and my Facebook. And
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
Like, they want to attack me, and like, you don't believe me because I look like a crazy person based on my appearance. Like, you want to judge me because I got blue hair right now. My hair's been like 20 different colors this month. And I don't think my fashion sense should have anything to do with whether or not you believe what happened to me so many years ago, that you're listening to everybody else complain about who might have grabbed their ass or came onto them when they were a 40-year-old woman. Like, and I'm not saying that those stories are wrong, because everyone should be speaking out. If they feel like they're harassed in some way, then speak out about it. But if you're a woman in your 40s and someone's coming on to you, it's unwanted. I understand. But I don't think it should be compared to a preteen and a teenager and an adolescent and a young adult being taken advantage of by a bunch of people who are looked up to as celebrities and figures that, oh, they could never be lying, is what people are saying. Like, well, they are lying. Like, if they're not really lying, they're just not acknowledging the subject and not answering it, hoping that it will go away, or I'll kill myself off of all the negative response that is given back to me in these people that are harassing me on every form of social media, that like just telling me to kill myself and I should commit suicide, and people digging up things from years ago now about, here's a picture of you from this and that. Like, so what? Like, I mean, what does any of this prove, except that you're misdirecting everyone from the facts that I've been telling this story, and now everyone decided to pay attention to it because I went outside like a fucking nutcase, excuse my language, and started screaming about it because I was in a bad state of mind. And now everyone pays attention to it and want to say that it's a lie. And they, oh, well, it couldn't have happened because I just heard about it. Or, oh, I know him and he would never do anything like that because this is all the charity work and everything he's done. And he's got a family. Why would he want something that looks like you? Like, he didn't have a family at the time. This is specific things that people don't know the details of, that if they would just fucking listen, or just go on my Facebook, that they're so intent on going on every single day to post something negative about me, telling me to commit suicide and giving me creative ways of how to do it, but they won't go back in my timeline and just see that, like, this is, like, how long have I been saying this? And these people are, you're just coming up with this. And it's just so sickening that I don't know what to do with myself anymore. But as far as the mental illness that has stemmed from this, I have to say, I woke up sick to my stomach, nauseous every day for at least, and no exaggeration, for at least 30 years. I've been a sick person, you know, like I said, I had a lot of alcohol and drugs in me, whatever. Not anymore. I'm, you know, straight person. I can't even touch alcohol because my stomach's torn apart, amongst other things. My head is clear enough to know what I'm doing, and just because people right now are paying attention to it doesn't mean that I just start bringing it up. And if they want to ignore the fact that I've been bringing it up for a long time and try to bury the story and sweep it under the rug again, like I told them, you know, publicly, you're going to have to come kill me if you want to bury this, because I'm not going to fucking stop. And say that I sound like a nutcase if I want, but I'm a nutcase because y'all made me one. People want to call me a ring rat and a slut and all that stuff, and then in the same sentence say, this didn't happen, you lying ring rat whore. Like, just listen. Just, you know, some of the common opinions of people who, I'm not telling them they hate these people, but they're calling me a ring rat. And my definition and my meaning and what I've always known as a ring rat is like, and I don't know if this is the same for you guys, but it's a girl who sleeps around in the business. That's a ring rat. A girl, a woman, whatever. So if I'm a ring rat and I'm very known as that, how did I get that way? Did I go around fucking myself? Or maybe since you know I'm a ring rat, there's people to look at to see who I've been a ring rat with, right? Or am I making sense here?
No, it's true, and it's crazy because
So stupid.
what gets talked about and is so brushed off and a normal thing, quote unquote, is ring rats. And no one ever talks about, well, what about these guys that have these ring rats? Like, you can't talk about, oh, these ring rats, oh, blah, blah, blah. But what about these married men, these men that are in relationships, these men that are messing with girls that are younger than they should be? No one talks about that. And it's interesting because kind of on this topic, there was something that somebody on Twitter. It's called Wrestling Sexism, I think is their handle. And they had said something about a ring rat. And I commented on it, and I said, well, the worst is when it's a worker rat. And then their response to me was, well, we don't like the demeaning of anybody. And I agree, that's fine, but it just is what it is. And there's just like so many different dimensions of it. It's like, okay, you have the girls that aren't wrestlers. So those are the girls that I feel really get mistreated. And then you have the worker rats. There's the girls that are wrestlers or are in the business, and they are treated the same way. But you have to be a little bit more careful with, because if they, especially like in WWE, you're traveling, you're working, you're seeing them. Whereas the ring rats, you can just leave in the town. So it's like the worker rat. And then like none of that, it's almost like before anybody gets all bent out of shape, I'm not saying that all women are worker rats. I'm not saying all the women in WWE are worker rats. I'm just saying that there are worker rats out there. That's all.
See, because there's two different time errors here, I think, though, because you're younger than I am. I'm older right now. I'm 42 years old right now, but I think in the time that I was in, there wasn't like a whole lot of young girls who were rats. There was a lot of like Memphis rats who were like 12 years old, like always down south. There's like tons of 12, 13, 14-year-old rats. It's very known anywhere down south. But then in the era that I'm from, like in the 80s, there really weren't a lot of worker rats, as you put it, like the girls who were rats because they were in the business and that's all that they were around, so that's all that they were sleeping with, which really no one should consider a rat. But I was in kind of a different category because I was around all the workers and I was sleeping with them, but I was also working on independent shows when I turned like 14. And you can see these on YouTube. There's one that there's a whole bunch of NWA guys on, and then I make my debut on that. It's at 15 years old, and you can see that anywhere on YouTube. Girls, like only a couple that I know of that were like with my situation, where you want to look at them and you want to say, oh, well, you can't really say worker rats or whatever. Like, I'm going to take you from your childhood and leave you all the way into adulthood as like, and the thing is, the sad word about rats is like when I was younger, when I was like old enough to understand, 11, 12, 13 years old, like what a rat and a groupie was. The reason why I understood what it was because the people around me, like in the fan clubs I was in, and then I became a part of the promoters group, where of course they called us all groupies. And later on in life, I put on my Facebook profile even that former groupie, and I put the years from, thinking that people would match it up, that I was born March 4th, 1975. I'm 42 years old right now. So if I put that I was a groupie for Jim Crockett Promotions, NWA, and WCW from the years of 88 to 91, like break apart when they sold their company and did all their shit. Like Facebook will only let me put so much. But if I put that information on my profile, because by this time and this point in my life, I have a pretty morbid sense of humor about how people see me and refer to me. So the people who remember me from that era of time, from when I was a child, remember me as a groupie and a rat. So when I put that on my profile and people are like, oh, look, she's bragging about being a groupie and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not bragging about it. It's just a fact. That's how people remember me. It's like listing yourself as anything else. If you're a former doctor, you still used to be a doctor. So put it on up there. It may not be like such a prestigious title, but it's one that I'm not going to hide from, because if I hide from it, then I'm hiding what people did to me. Like, why am I going to hide from it when that wasn't only a childhood title, but the people who molested me brought it into my adulthood by letting everyone know that I was known as the most notorious groupie in the world of professional wrestling. Paul Heyman says in an interview that was more shoot than anything. shortly after I turned 19 years old. Now, if you calculate that, like, how would I become the most notorious groupie in the world of professional wrestling by the time I'm 19? If it takes a while to become the most notorious, I think. I'm not trying to make a joke out of this by any means. I just have like a bad sense of humor about it. And if I don't laugh about it, I'll cry about it because people are so fucking stubborn. Excuse my language again, but they're so stubborn about seeing the facts and knowing that there's still live witnesses that were around me for these events. People who sat on the end of the bed after I had sex with people. Like, these are live witnesses. They're still on my Facebook. They live and breathe as we speak. There are witnesses to the fact that this stuff happened. And the woman who was mad at me for this event with Mick Foley, she was mad because I had sex with him in her bed and didn't talk to me about it for like a week. So her memory is real sharp on this incident. So don't try to fucking call me a liar. I had groups of people around me. I did not travel by myself, and I was not alone. And the people who were with me are still alive. So they can eat a bag of dicks if they don't believe me. Excuse my language again, but that's just where I go.
Did you ever feel like you were in a romantic relationship with any of these people?
Yeah, I did. No, you don't understand. I seriously did. I mean, you don't understand how. Well, you probably understand. I'm saying you don't understand. You're a female yourself, but you remember how you felt like when you were like 12 and 13 years old, and you were you weren't intimate with anyone when you were that young. I'm sorry. I don't like that. Yeah, I mean, I seriously, I took it to heart when it happened, and it not only happened, but it happened more than once, and it was happening like in every town, and whether or not there was other guys, there was always like the one guy who was all the time, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I did. I felt like I didn't, outside of wrestling, I did not have sex with anyone but wrestlers. There was no outside life for me. I didn't go to school a lot, so I didn't associate with people my own age, and I did not have friends outside of the middle-aged women that I was hanging out with later in life that were a part of the promoters group that were already groupies before I had ever come around. And my mother sent me and my sister on the Great American Bash tour with them, and it was exactly as it played out, as like I was the friggin' Great American Bash tour in 1989, and it was some of the most sickening events that I should have been in school. I should have never ever been around those people. And these people, like I said, are still alive. Bruce Springsteen's the former secretary was a part of my 1989 group. She's still alive, and she attended all the events with us from Philadelphia to Maryland to Virginia and West Virginia and New Jersey and DC and New York and Chicago. Like, this is from 1988 to 1991. Like, WCW, NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, WWF, any independents that were around. I was there with these women who everyone already knew as being groupies way before I came around. That's moving on to my 1988 to 1991 group. For people to question me, how were you around all these people, is because I traveled to all these places and sitting in the comp section in the front row, where if people could pull up tapes of any of these pay-per-views that they had, like Starrcade and War Games and all that, I was there. I was in the front row in the friggin' promoter section, in the front friggin' row. It's not like they can hide that I was there. Just do a little friggin' research. I was there. And don't doubt me on what I'm saying, because people know what they know.
The difference between the groupies and the promoter group, like what's can you explain to us the difference between that and how?
Oh no, well, the thing is, the groupies were they were ring rats who were older, and I started traveling with them closer like the end of 88 and all through like 1989 for the Great American Bash tour, and then all throughout until 91. The promoters group of groupies were more like closer knit to the wrestlers and we traveled a lot more than I did with the fan club that I was involved with before that. It was just like bus trips and random hotel visits. And then I started traveling with the promoters group after that, which was a little bit more extended in where we went and the events that we had front row and all the Jim Crockett Promotions, NWA events and the WCW events and independent events that were in the area. The difference is that they were just closer groupies, and I don't know. Is there a difference? Like, no, they were just like closer, and we didn't have to pay for our tickets, and we had a block of rooms at the hotels after the shows on the same floor as the wrestlers that we would just leave our doors open, connecting doors, and everyone after the bar closed would just run through the connecting doors in and out of each other's rooms after the shows. So that was like how things after wrestling shows went on the weekend. Like that group of people, we had a block of room with the wrestlers, so we were going crazy like all weekend. And that, to me, I was considering that I was building relationships with people like that. Like when I wasn't around anyone else, and I was, I felt comfortable passing out in rooms around them and like whatever. And you couldn't prevent sometimes that the way I felt about it, like in the way the girls were talking to me about it, when I would say, oh, well, this happened with this one, and I was crying about it, and I was real upset about some stuff, and they were like, listen, it happens. And that's the way I took it, like in my life, that, I see it's happened to them, so it happened. Like, they're older women, but it happens. And that's the way you end up looking at it. Like, these are the people that I'm around, and this is what I'm doing, and sometimes it happens. It doesn't occur to you that, oh, well, I'm like, I'm 13, I'm 14, I'm 15. This shouldn't be happening. Like, you don't think like that. You really don't. Like, it doesn't occur to you because you're a child and you don't want to go to school, and your parents are shit and you don't want to listen to them. And you got all this attention from all these people who are on TV around you and being your friends and drinking with you in bars and paying for your meals and, having sex with you and treating you like you're a special person. What, are you going to fucking complain about it? I didn't complain about it back then as much. Like I complained about it as much as I could. And I was told like something that sounded reasonable enough to me that it happens, that I thought that way for a long time. It just happens. It's something that just happens.
Now, when you had these encounters, were there times where you absolutely didn't want to do anything sexual and you felt pressured to, or was it just?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that all of them were like that, but the times that they were, it was like brutal and unnecessary, and like I really want to get into it, but I was advised at even like doing any kind of live, like a podcast or anything like that. But I so want to get into so many situations here that, a lot of things were uncalled for, above and beyond anything I ever expected to happen in my life. And I had to act like it was nothing and just move on and see that same person like the next day, the next week, the next month. And even though it made me sick and tore me up inside, sometimes that's just what happens. And that's the way I had to look at it.
It's really unfortunate because, I mean, dealing with all this, it's like you're going through a grieving process when you're realizing all this and like reliving everything. And for me personally, I feel people who have been attacking towards me and they don't take ownership of it, and they claim to have a life that is just so great and they don't hurt anyone and they have this persona about them. I want to almost shake them and say, look, take ownership of the person that you were. If you're this new person, and psychologically speaking, you probably need to go to therapy. These people are sick. There's some psychological issues that are deep rooted, and I'm just taking a guesstimate, but I'm pretty sure 10 times out of 10, they have been abused themselves, and they learn that behavior, and they have some trauma. And it would only be in their benefit to speak up about it and get some healing about it. And I just think it's really sad, and I think it's a big cycle. And I think that it's really healing and positive to talk about things and take ownership of things.
You'll have to speak up. When you don't speak up and you bury things, you make yourself sick. As I start saying before, that I didn't finish because I'm a rambly speaker. I apologize again. I was nauseous every day for a good 30 years, no exaggeration. And after I came home from Bethlehem and I sat down on my couch and I said to my daughter, I'm not nauseous. And she was like, oh, well, but tomorrow will come, and, we're laughing at each other. Yeah, tomorrow I'll be here. And this was the day that I went up to this book signing to do this. And then the next day I woke up and I wasn't nauseous. And every day I've woke up since then, I have not been nauseous. I mean, I've still haven't been, I still have stomach problems because that'll just last all my life. But I have not been nauseous one day since I've done this. And I think if nothing else comes out of this, like, at least I lost like a nausea that lasted decades of holding something in and not holding it in so much, but having it be held down to a point that when I am speaking out about it, I might as well hold it in because it's not really coming out to anyone who hears it. And I found that this time around, I think enough people heard it to at least alleviate that one small problem for me. I mean, I don't know. So some people say like it's a psychosomatic thing or whatever. I'm not sure if I'm correct with that word, but a lot of people who keep things inside with getting sick to your stomach. It's one of the symptoms, and I haven't felt it so much since then. So I believe that there's some truth to your brain affecting the way your body works.
I totally agree. As story short as I can make it, in the summertime, I guess, it was right before the summertime, maybe June. From June up until just a few months ago, I really went through this really weird time where I was in a constant state of being nauseated. And what's interesting is for many, many years, like definitely over 10, you know what? No, now that I look at it, like, to be honest with you, like my whole entire life, I thought it was normal to wake up feeling like I had to throw up. And it wasn't until around 2011, I shared with Danielle that, I just feel like throwing up. I always feel that way. And she was like, that's not normal, right? And I was like, wait, it's not? And I thought, yeah, it's just normal. It's normal. And so, like, there was that. And then it kind of just became like as I started healing and accepting, and repressed memories were coming back, that's when I started having better days. But for some reason, from June up until a couple months ago, I didn't just have it in the morning and here and there throughout the day. It was like a constant state. Like, I love wine. Like, Danielle and I host like a monthly wine tasting thing. Like, we're into it like that, and I couldn't even drink because I was just, to be honest, my soul was just like so disrupted and I didn't understand. And Danielle and I were on a cruise with our mom in the summer. And I was having a dream about my grandma's house. And again, if any of my family members are listening, this is not to be malicious. This is just true. And I do believe that a lot of my sexual abuse did happen in this one particular bathroom from my grandpa. And in my dream, while we were on the cruise, I was in that bathroom, but it was remodeled. And then when all of a sudden this sense of fear went over me, in my dream, I started peeing myself. And then in real life, I woke up to me peeing the bed. And I've never done something like that before. Yeah. And so that, to me, was the beginning stages of me understanding myself and what's happened to me on a different level. And I feel like because
was that the first time you start feeling like you were remembering things enough to connect places with, like, what exactly was making you feel that way? Was that?
Yes, and then that's when my cousin, organically, her and I started coming together. And I really feel, since I've been talking to my cousin, that's what's relieved me being in that constant state. Like I have, like this is going to go in my audio diary on my fan site. And as I mentioned to you earlier, most of it's a pay site, but I'm going to have this for free. But my members can vouch when they listen to this. Like there was months that I was vlogging. I was like, you guys, what if something's like wrong with me physically? Like I don't have insurance, and like maybe I should go get blood work because I'm just in this constant state. And now that I'm looking at the whole picture, it's all from all this stuff that I've suppressed, or even things that I already would talk about, but I wasn't, I guess, understanding.
You weren't connecting everything up, and now it's clear to you. Right. Because when traumatized people first start to realize things, it's like a puzzle, you have to put all these pieces together and then connect them with the feelings that you've been feeling and have no idea why you've been feeling like this. And you know what I mean? And then finally, you're triggered to remember these things, and it's unfolding exactly like you're saying. Like you've never wet the bed, but when you started remembering something about somewhere maybe that you were touched, that was your reaction. And I hear where you're coming from with that, because a lot of things that you don't realize, and then you start to realize later in life because of things that are connected to the current events that are baffling to you about this stuff has never happened, so why is it happening now? And if you actually have therapists unraveling it, and even neurologists for me on my behalf unravel a lot of things, because I have levels of brain damage that aren't very delightful either. So on top of the abuse and everything else, it always helps to when you're having those memories and your feelings aren't connecting right to everything that you remember, there has to be a way to bring that stuff up and bring it out, so that then you know how to control it in your life and have it not make you sick and unaware of why it is you feel like you do as a person. Because some people think they're going nuts, not knowing why they feel a certain way, and that sounds
scary to confront those feelings, because what we're told is, I don't want to feel uncomfortable, so I'm not going to do or say things that make me feel uncomfortable. And that's when we have subconscious issues, because
the truth makes everyone uncomfortable is what the problem is. And the thing is, when you don't deal with the truth and you bury it and you put lies on top of it to try to satisfy how everyone else wants you to feel, that's what makes you sick. Like you can't you can't do that and then expect for you to be healthy in your brain later in life, because you're suppressing things for other people's satisfaction, and it explodes eventually if you keep pressing it down. And sometimes it explodes in negative ways of not just people going out screaming, or some people wetting the bed, or some people going out murdering people. Like it explodes in different ways, and it's really a shame, because by the time it gets to points that a lot of, like you said, your family abused you and everything, and it's not coming out till later because you're connecting with someone to talk about it. And a lot of lawmakers even don't realize that people sometimes have to be through years of therapy before they realize that they're even traumatized or they're acting out in any way. And then they have to be sat down and kind of rewired in their brain to know that, listen, you have to think a different way because this is what happened to you. It takes a long time for some victims of trauma to realize what happened to them. And then they go through an acceptance process that takes even longer. And wanting to talk to people beyond a therapist's office is then even harder, because especially when you're talking about something about your family, of course, the rest of your family isn't going to want to hear about that because it's disappointing and it's not something that people want to hear. And the truth hurts. But if it's hurting you, come out with it already, because the truth hurts them, but it's hurting you more by holding it in.
Exactly. And I think it's a basic survival technique to just kind of go with the flow and say, oh, well, I just need to get through this moment. And these traumatic moments, even as a child specifically, you don't understand quite what's happening. You don't know how to process it.
But you learn to just move along because people are telling you, just get over it, move along.
Yeah, and then tuck in the back of the head. And there's been a lot of studies that's shown that a lot of repressed memories or just repressed emotions, they can lead to Alzheimer's and cancers and different things like that, because even though we are trying to not be consciously aware of things, it's something that's pressing against our brain, and you can get rewired.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I'll be very honest with you about physical conditions, and I was reminded of this on my Facebook because I looked at what my memories were from last year, a year to the day. I was in a hospital. This wasn't too long ago, and I was having these episodes of where I was bleeding from like every exit of my body. Not to get too graphic, but doctors said that they couldn't find anything specifically wrong with me that wasn't already wrong. They couldn't figure it out. Again, that was happening last year, and it has not happened again. So things do manifest from holding things in, like you get physical ailments, and literally, you're right. You could get cancer. You like give yourself cancer by holding stuff in, because it tears away at you, like in your stomach and at your brain and at your heart and your friggin' soul. Like, it's soul crushing to hold this shit in.
Your heart is a big part of you, and that's what fuels you. And that's why I just keep everyone aware of this. And even like we're talking about bedwetting, and something about bedwetting is when you are on the end of being a psychologist and you have a child that's bedwetting, your first initial thing is going to be, okay, this is an anxiety response. What is the anxiousness? And then also a big thing of bedwetting sometimes, not always, but a lot of times, it has to do with sexual abuse. And so it's just like our bodies are so strong, and they're trying to tell us something, and we think that our minds rule our bodies, and they do in a sense. But at the same time, just it's good to talk about these things. And I think that we can't be in a place where we're saying, oh, just forget it, just push it down, just repress it, let's forget it, let's gloss over it, because physically and psychologically it is so unhealthy and so not good. And it brings you healing and peace, even just that emotionally is so beneficial, let alone the physical aspects that could be really beneficial. I'm not trying to say all cancer is because of this, because cancer is awful, and there's so many other factors that go into that. But as far as prevention and stuff like that, heart disease and things like that, your blood pressure is definitely linked to stress. And
anxiety, and the anxiety you might feel from whatever situation like that is definitely all around depression and all these things. But I think in different generations it was more prone to people like getting cancer and like dying from these things with high blood pressure and whatnot, because they were eating it and choking on it and holding it in. But this generation, I'm never too optimistic on anything, but I would like to say that I would like to be optimistic in thinking that this generation is, and I tweeted this, the era of silence has ended. And this was a day before I went to this book signing to do what I did, because I was in a different state of mind. But I'm hoping with this generation that comment that was in my head that I bothered to share with the world is somewhat true. That the end, like this is the end of this, the era of silence. Like we can't just sit on this anymore because it hurts. We can't hold it in anymore because it hurts. And it shouldn't be a time where we should not be able to speak about it when everybody and their mother is speaking about it. So don't try to single people out just because you don't like what they're hearing. You don't like what they're saying to you. You don't want to hear it as the truth. Don't try to bury them, because this is not the type of generation that should do that, and it should change now. There shouldn't be any of these problems in the future, and now that they are all being addressed. Like this episode with me did not come up because of #MeToo, I'll say again, or this Harvey Weinstein thing or anything like that. I actually found out about these things afterwards, because I'm not the person who watches like TV, or I'm not in communication a lot with with a lot. I don't like television and stuff like that. But I was made aware of that it was going on because of what I did. And I agree that, people, women, men even, that are assaulted, and if you feel like something's been done to you that's wrong, you should definitely speak out about it. And this is a time in a generation that everyone is listening. So again, this is not why I did it. I've been talking about this for years, but I think for other people, it definitely serves as benefit for people who have been ignored and silenced and told, like, your time to complain is up because of the statute of limitations, and just shut your mouth because, this one's a star and we don't want to hear from you because you're nobody. That time of life should be over. I am a 42-year-old woman now, and although these things happened to me in my childhood, and I did not live my adult life as a ring rat in any way, had very few relationships, people still want to tag that on me. I hope that this is the era where things will change for people and start listening. Whether or not they listen to me, I really don't expect them to be honest with you. It's so disappointing the way things are going. Like, I don't expect anything positive, but I hope that other people will be encouraged, not discouraged by watching my situation, and rather be encouraged by continuing to tell their incidents and their issues and their situations, so that maybe it'll stop at one point, hopefully.
Maybe. It's the hope, right? Well, before we let you go, I have to ask if anything that you could tell Mick Foley right now, if he's listening to this, what would you like to say?
Well, let's see, if Mick Foley is listening to this, he could have come outside at any point during my protest to speak to me, instead of sending someone outside to focus on a sign that says something about a brotherhood of pedophilias and wrestling. Instead of distracting us like that, he knows me for a long time, and he knows who I am, and he knows what he did. And the least he could have done was come out and try to apologize or calm the situation in some way, instead of ignoring me like I wasn't there. I don't expect anyone to respond kindly to someone who's yelling and screaming at them. But, it would have been a gesture. And he's made no gesture. And since he made no gesture while I was there, and he continues to make no gesture to respond, know that people know me, and people are reading you for staying silent. So the longer you don't answer or address the situation, you and your friends, the worse it makes you look. So I advise that all of you, if you want to call me a liar, fine. I'm not, because I got proof. But just think about this, like, all your fans that are defending you, eventually they're going to start to question why you're not addressing and answering this situation. Just something to think about. And that's what I have to say to Mick Foley.
All right. And for everyone that's been listening to this, do you have any words or thoughts or anything that you'd like to say to anyone that's been tuning in about this whole situation? Kind of like wrapping up your final thought, I guess.
As I said, I'm just stating my story and things that happen to me. This is a story about me. I wasn't planning on, trying to bring any legal action or to put anybody in prison. I wasn't talking about all that. I was just trying to tell a story, maybe get an apology. That won't happen. I see that now. I think that people should think about whether or not Mick Foley is an appropriate representative of a rape and incest organization, and maybe get in touch with him about whether or not he wants to keep that position or be a respectful person and step down from that position. And I couldn't leave you with any more of a thought than that.
All right. Well, I just want to thank you so much for taking time out of your life to answer some questions, because, like I mentioned before, when a fan, I have to go back and look at my Twitter to thank that person, told me that you were on Twitter and sent me your your official screen name, mention, whatever you want to call it. And when you and I first were talking, I knew that typing wasn't enough. Like, I needed to know from your mouth. I needed to hear it. Again, like, for me, it's been a really rough week for me, because your story opened up all these thoughts in my head, and I was already
naturally going through that aside from like Mick Foley. Like he wasn't. I wasn't even thinking of
But
him.
you know what? And I would say I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry that that happened to you as a result of looking at me. I'm actually very happy that it happened, and I couldn't be more thankful to you for reaching out to me and giving me a platform to speak on, to explain my story and get some misinformation corrected. And I appreciate that you tolerate, my crying and my babbling and whatever, that you've actually both given me a lot to think about and a lot of good information that I felt really comfortable talking this out. And I really appreciate, again, that you've given me the platform to speak on. And I do feel for everything that you're saying. And if you ever need anyone to talk to or even vent to, you know where to find me.
Oh, I appreciate that. You want to say something?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being so open and honest. And I think that we had a really blunt conversation. And a lot of people like to sugarcoat things. And I think that did not happen today, which I'm very thankful for. And we hit things on every realm, whether it's the social aspect of the boys' club of wrestling, or it's the sexual abuse, the psychological, the physical, everything. And I think we touched all our bases. And I think that whoever is listening is going to really gain something from this. And I know that you've had a lot of issues with people trying to interrupt you with your social media, and it could be a big risk talking about all this stuff. So thank you again for sharing with us, and it was a pleasure meeting you via phone. And I think it's awesome that we can have this support system, because I think most of victims, being one myself, our family members are the ones telling us to be quiet, and that's our family. And I feel like how we judge the world is based on our small little world that we learn from our family. That's how we know how to deal with people. That's how we know how to be social. And we base everything off of our family. And when that is broken and corrupt, it's really hard, and we're at risk going into the world. So it's tough, and it's easy to blame people and children who are just being children and being hurt, to say, oh, you're being this way or you're being that way, and just to blame it on you as a child. And it's not okay. Yeah, we all have our moments, but at the same time, we have to look at the people that were the adults in the situation.
And it's absurd, and it's like I said before, I'm so glad that you guys have brought it up, because a lot of people are afraid to address this issue and put this kind of content on their websites or radio shows or whatever, because they're afraid of being pulled or censored or things being taken down. So I do appreciate that you guys don't care about that, and you're willing to get into it, because it's something that you do stand behind and support, and you're looking at it from both ends and just, taking it as you are, and I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
A lot cheaper than trying to go to therapy is to talk to people who have actually been through similar circumstances and understand where another person's coming from, to not start off as judgmental and listen to a story through enough to know that we all do need to support each other, so that we're not all sitting around sick, making ourselves sick about this stuff. So I do appreciate it very much.
I agree. And, I'm just all about the truth. And there's something that I've often said, which is nothing wrong can come out of the truth. It can make people uncomfortable. It can make them sad. It can make them, whatever. But no wrong can come out of the truth. And I'm not saying this to be a troublemaker or anything. This is, again, just the truth. But I did straight out ask Mick in a message what the deal was with you, and I didn't hear from him. So I'm not trying to I know some people can say, well, there's two sides to every story, and I did try to get that, but you can only do so much. And so I went with what I had, and that was you saying, hell yeah, I'll talk about it. So
no reason why I shouldn't. I have nothing to hide, and I believe that the ones who aren't talking about it do have something to hide. So glad you contacted me.
If anybody wants to see your posts or anything like that, where can they find you on social media?
Well, on Facebook, I'm at Angel Amoroso, Angel Amoroso. So there's no misunderstandings on spelling of my name there. And also on Twitter at Angel Amoroso1, and also on Instagram at Angel Amoroso for you. Also YouTube at Maramoo YouTube. I'll actually send you the links later because there's several YouTube links that I'd like to advertise. So I'll send them to you later, and maybe you could just pop them up. It'll take way too long to do it. That's about how you can get in touch with me. And again, I appreciate the platform. It was awesome. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
Thank you so much for being our guest.
So Danielle, before I get into my thought, what are your final thoughts?
It was so interesting just listening back to everything because so much can change within a matter of days. And I feel like ever since that day where we actually recorded it originally, I have been challenging my own thoughts, my own views on life. I've been doing just a lot of growing and questioning. And so now I hear it totally differently. Not in the sense that I disagree with what I said or anything like that, but I just see it in a deeper way. And I think it's really cool that we were able to do this and speak out. And this is the time to do it. And I think it's amazing that we just so happen to be in a time where everyone's starting to speak out in the entertainment industry and just general. People, the feeling of being outspoken is being embraced. And people like Angel or people like us who in the past have been punished for talking about the truth or opinions or challenging anything. We were told, I know we said it earlier, but we were told to be quiet, or we're troublemakers, or we don't have our facts straight, like just so much questioning. And now it's time where people are more willing to be open to at least hear us out before any of that. So I think that's really cool. And this is all meant, and it's all on point in timing.
I agree. And for me, it was crazy because I have listened to this interview so many different times because it took me so long to edit it. It was so hard having to start over. Like, I wanted to give up so many times, but I knew it was super important to share this story. And for anyone out there who may take what this whole interview was about in the wrong way, don't, because I was thinking about it, I'm kind of, what's the right word? I guess I'm just very aware that there's going to be people that are going to say things about this that are negative and miss the point just because I was once in the WWE, I was once friends with Mick Foley, why am I doing this kind of thing?
They get distracted with the who and not the what.
Right. And for me, it's like, I tried to look this up before we started doing this recording, but I couldn't really find a concrete answer, and I didn't want to keep looking. But you and I have been doing podcasts for since I want to say 2009-10, and there was a lot of, and this is no disrespect, I'm just stating this for a reason, before Colt Cabana came on the whole wrestling with his podcast, and it really blew up, and it seemed like a lot of people started having podcasts, and it was a thing. You and I, who we are, aside from me being a wrestler, I just kind of used that as my hook. But we've always had video chats, podcasts, and something that we've always, our theme for everything, if you think about it, is we're just trying to either learn the truth and facts or share the truth and facts.
Or just have a conversation.
Or have a conversation that's enlightening, or you can stimulate somebody and they in return stimulate you back. So I don't feel bad for doing this interview because it's up to the listener to decide for themselves what they want to believe. If they feel that Angel's in the wrong, or they feel Mick's in the wrong, or whatever, it doesn't matter. What matters is that this gal, Angel Amoroso, had a story that nobody was listening to. I know how that feels. So the old journalist in me was like, why not give her a play if she wants to talk about it? And since that was over a month ago. And since then, I'm just being real. Mick has written me back. And I told him that I did write to Angel and that we did interview her. And I asked him if he had anything to say about it. and he just told me that she has some mental illness and that she doesn't know how to kind of decide what's fantasy and reality, and for me not to contact him anymore. So I'm not bringing that up to bury him. It's part of the freaking story. I mean, we started it. In fact, you know who started it? The fans started it. They said, hey, have you heard of this thing? So I'm just giving the conclusion, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be upset with me and whatever. But if you are, obviously you don't really know me, because you would know that I wouldn't put something out there just for attention or for, listeners or people to go to my website, because I'm putting this on my fan page that is a fan site that's a pay site, and I'm putting this audio diary for free. So I'm not making money off of this at all. I don't care about getting attention in the wrestling world because I'm freaking retired from wrestling. Yeah, I'll do appearances here and there if it's worth my while, but I don't care. So I just wanted to throw all of those little feelers out there because I just know how people are based on the past. And I'm really sorry that this is something we had to talk about, because I wish we didn't. I wish all of this was not true. I wish none of this was even a thing to even talk about, but it is. And it seems like no one else is talking about it. So why the hell not, right? Martinez girls.
Keeping it real.
Keeping it real. Keeping it real. Keeping it real. Keeping it real.
You know what? We always will, and that's something you can always guarantee with us. And you're going to hear all the details and all the different sides, and that's how it should be. No one should be hiding anything.
Well, here's the thing. It's what about when people would say, oh, did you hear about what happened to Mick Foley, this chick, blah, 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 let's go look at the link. And then they all discussed, even though they're supposed to be Mick Foley's friends, behind his back, and they all gossip about it. And I know this because people have talked to me about it since. And so no one's asking him anything. And that's why I contacted him, because I wanted to find out. I contacted him before Angel's interview. That's why in the interview I said that I had contacted him already, because I felt he's my friend. Let me hear him out off the record, not for the interview, but just as, holy crap, this is really crappy things to be said about somebody. So why assume or like play high school games? He's supposed to be my friend, so I'm going to go right to him and ask him. And he blocked me, so I don't know.
Odd reaction, huh?
It is what it is, and we would love to hear people's feedback.
Yes.
It's going to be very interesting.
So what you can do is comment below. I list also the links in the box below this audio, the links that Angel was referring to. And leave a comment. And here's the thing. You can totally leave a comment and not be a paying member of the site. Yeah, you have to make up a username, but it's totally free. You don't have to pay for it. I can't stress that enough. It's just, like if you were to sign in with your Twitter or somewhere or something like that. So please let us know, and we'll definitely do a follow-up on all of this. I actually would like to do a follow-up after I come back from... I'm going to be going to Philadelphia at the end of the month. So I think it'd be kind of cool. Okay, so it's January and it's the audio diary. So let's do a follow-up next month.
Yes.
And we'll see what the F happens, huh?
Absolutely.
All right, until next time. I'm Shelly. She's Danielle. Adios.
Toodles.
Okay, so I hope I don't lose the stream here. I'm going to try to click back to see my comment section. Oh, good. I did not lose my chat. And just for the record, it's been over a year, and we have not had that follow-up interview ever. But I enjoyed the first one so much, and enjoyed helping those guys out. So I'm going to go through, if I can. Not really sure if I could go through this chat and just welcome everyone that's joined us. So far, I can see that Joe Cohen has joined us, Billy Real joined us, Calvin Harrington joined us, Michelle Murray Orcio joined us, Michael J. DeMusio joined us, Sean Rattray joined us, Ralph DeLuzio joined us. I am trying to move down the list here. Here we go. Ratio joined us. Let's see. Justin Drysdale joined us. Chris Craven joined us. Pete Crawford joined us. He said, kick their ass, Angel. Oh, there's no ass to kick there. Let's see. As we're moving down this list, I got to keep clicking on and off here. Let's see. Okay. And go back on. Let's see. Joey Janela has joined us. Thanks for joining, Joey. Kevin Tate joined us. Thanks for joining, Kevin. Zoltan Ken Jugan joined us. Thanks for joining, Ken. One of my favorite guys who I used to manage. I managed back in Steelton, Pennsylvania. So, okay, and there we go. Billy Real joined us. Thanks for joining, Billy. Ryan Dreadrot joined. Thanks for joining, Ryan. It's weird. I can't figure out how to keep myself on the damn screen, but it's okay. During the stream here, I just had a conversation with Justin Drysdale about having a meltdown and whatnot, and I hope that's going better for you. Also commented a bit during the stream as to comments that were in reference to what was going on in the interview. So if you want to know what I was talking about, just go back and you can see what I'm talking about. Mostly was poor Shelley and stuff like that. So Max Vitale joined us. Thanks for joining, Max. Joe Zanoli joined us. Thanks for joining, Joe. Let's see. Frank has joined us. And my good friend Brittany Brown joined us. Thanks for joining, doll. I have went, let me see. Wow, this is almost 2 hours. So I don't want to go too much longer because I don't want to go. I didn't want to go over an hour, but there are follow-up comments to this video and this interview with Shelly Martinez that are from her Patreon and also from Reddit and a few different sources. I never seen the comment from Mick Foley. I never seen the text from him saying anything. So I'm really not sure about the comment that he made to her, but he did block her on social media. So, that's to say something. So, like I said, I don't want to drag this out. So I hope you've all enjoyed our episode 18 of Fuck You, Mick Foley. And we'll be back shortly to discuss other topics on Reddit message boards, videos, and whatnot. Since I just seen all the shares and nasty comments of people who I thought were my friends, I'll get to all you motherfuckers. Don't worry about it. Since you want to involve yourself in this situation, I'm going to go ahead and involve you. So again, thanks everyone for joining me. And if you'd like to get in touch with me on any form of social media, I'm on Twitter at Angel Amoroso1, on Facebook here at Angel Amoroso versus Angel Walsh and Angel Amoroso. I also have a fan page on the Angel Amoroso page. It's a CCCP, Crazy Cunty Clown Posse, which is a fan page for me and my daughter, Christina J. Polis, who also joined us. Thanks for joining, doll. I also have groups, Comment of the Day and Wrestling Bitch, of which anyone could join. Just send a request and perhaps I will allow you in. Otherwise, you can join me over on YouTube at Angel Amoroso versus, that's VS versus, Maramoo YouTube and Dirty Dead Doll Productions. Those are the main 3 YouTube sites. And on Instagram at Angel Amoroso for you. That's the letter 4 and the letter U. If I missed anything, I say it in every program, so no big deal. You could just see it on some other one. But that's about it for this evening. Oh, Magna Pondo joined us. Thanks for joining, doll. Yes, thanks for joining us. And until the next time, have a nice night and a nice life.